I hired a contractor to renovate my basement. 3 hours later, he called me, his voice shaking. "Mr. Chen, you need to come home right now. I found something behind the wall. There's a room here, and sir, someone's been living in it." My hands trembled as I gripped the phone. "What do you mean? Someone's been living in it?" "There's a bed, food containers, clothes, and I can hear breathing." I told him to get out of the house immediately and call the police. As I drove home from my accounting firm in downtown Toronto, my mind raced. My wife Patricia had died 6 years ago from lung cancer. Or at least, that's what I thought. Our daughter Sophie was away at university in Montreal. Who could possibly be living in my basement? Let me back up. My name is David Chen, and I'm 63 years old. I've lived in the same house in North York for 35 years. Patricia and I bought it when we were newlyweds, raised Sophie here, built our entire life within these walls. When Patricia got her diagnosis 7 years ago, our world shattered. Stage 4 lung cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months, maybe a year with treatment. She fought hard, but the disease was relentless. I took leave from work to care for her. Sophie came home from school every weekend. We made the most of the time we had left. Patricia spent her final months in palliative care, and when she passed, we held a small funeral. She wanted to be cremated, and I scattered her ashes in High Park, where we used to walk every Sunday morning. The grief nearly destroyed me. For 2 years, I barely functioned. Sophie worried about me constantly. Then, 3 years ago, I met Linda at a support group for widowers and widows. She was a nurse at Sunnybrook Hospital, 49 years old, kind and understanding. She'd lost her husband to a heart attack 5 years earlier. We bonded over our shared loss. Linda was patient with me. She understood when I couldn't throw away Patricia's belongings right away. She held me when I cried on what would have been our anniversary. Slowly, carefully, she helped me rebuild my life. 2 years ago, she moved in with me. Sophie was hesitant at first, protective of her mother's memory, but Linda never tried to replace Patricia. She was respectful, gentle. Last month, I proposed. Linda said yes. We planned a small wedding for this summer. Sophie seemed happy for me, though I noticed she'd become distant lately. She made excuses not to come home for reading week. When she did visit, she seemed nervous, jumpy. I attributed it to stress from her engineering program. The basement renovation was Linda's idea. "That space is just collecting dust and old memories," she'd said. "Let's turn it into something useful. A home office for you, maybe a guest room for when Sophie visits with friends." It made sense. I'd been avoiding the basement for years. Too many of Patricia's things were stored down there. I hired Marcus, a contractor recommended by my neighbor. He seemed professional, experienced. He started work on a Monday morning while I was at the office, and Linda was on the day shift at the hospital. That's when he called me. By the time I arrived home, 2 police cruisers were already parked outside. Marcus stood on my front lawn, pale and shaken. Officers Kowalski and D'Souza met me at the door. "Mr. Chen, we need you to stay calm," Officer Kowalski said. "We've cleared the main floor and second floor. We were about to check the basement when you arrived." "Did Marcus tell you what he found?" "He said there appears to be a concealed room behind a false wall in your basement storage area. He heard sounds coming from inside. We need to investigate, but we wanted you present." My stomach churned. "This doesn't make sense. I've lived here for 35 years. When was the last time you went into that storage area?" I had to think. Years, maybe. Maybe not since before Patricia died. It's just old furniture, holiday decorations, things we didn't use anymore. We descended the basement stairs, the officers leading with flashlights. Marcus had torn down part of the drywall near the old storage room. Behind it, I could see another wall, newer looking. Someone had built a false wall, creating a hidden space. Officer D'Souza called out, "This is the Toronto Police Service. If anyone is in there, please respond. You are not in trouble. We want to help you." Silence. Then, so faint I almost missed it, a whisper, "Help me." My blood ran cold. That voice. I knew that voice. The officers exchanged glances. "Mr. Chen, please step back. We're going to breach this wall." It took them 20 minutes to carefully remove enough drywall to reveal a door. It was locked from the outside, a heavy-duty deadbolt. Officer Kowalski radioed for backup and paramedics. "Do you have any idea who might be in there?" he asked me. I couldn't speak. That voice. It couldn't be. It was impossible. They broke through the lock. The door swung open, revealing a small room, maybe 10 by 12 feet. There was a cot, some shelves with food containers and water bottles, a bucket in the corner, and on the cot, wrapped in blankets, was a woman. She was emaciated, her hair long and unkempt, her skin pale as paper, but her eyes. I knew those eyes. "Patricia?" The word came out as a broken sob. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "David," I collapsed. Officer D'Souza caught me, lowered me to the floor. "Do you know this woman?" "She's my wife who died 6 years ago." The paramedics rushed in, checking Patricia's vital signs, wrapping her in thermal blankets. She was severely malnourished, dehydrated, weak, as they prepared to transport her. She grabbed my hand. "Linda," she whispered. It was Linda. My world tilted. "What? She never died." "She was my nurse," she said. "She said she could help me avoid the pain of dying. She gave me something, said it would make me comfortable. But I didn't die. I woke up here. That's impossible. We had a funeral. I scattered your ashes." "Whose ashes did you scatter, David?" The paramedics took Patricia to the hospital. I rode in the ambulance with her, my mind unable to process what was happening. Patricia was alive. My wife of 40 years, who I'd mourned for 6 years, was alive. And Linda, the woman I'd planned to marry, had done this to her. At the hospital, while doctors examined Patricia, I called Sophie. She answered on the first ring. "Dad, what's wrong? You never call during the day." "Sophie, I need you to sit down. You're scaring me. Your mother is alive." The line went silent for so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, "What did you say?" "Your mother, Patricia. She's alive. Linda kept her prisoner in our basement for 6 years." Sophie's scream echoed through the phone. "I knew it! Dad, I knew something was wrong. What are you talking about?" "The past few months, when I'd come home late at night, I'd hear sounds from the basement, tapping, like someone was trying to send a message. And once, I thought I heard Mom's voice singing that lullaby she used to sing to me. But Linda said it was just the pipes, or I was stressed from school. She made me feel crazy." My hands clenched into fists. Linda had been gaslighting my daughter. For months. "Where is Linda now?" Sophie asked. "I don't know. She's at work. The police are looking for her." Sophie was on the next train to Toronto. Meanwhile, detectives arrived at the hospital to take Patricia's statement. She was weak, could only speak in short bursts, but she told them everything. Linda had been Patricia's palliative care nurse. She'd seemed kind, compassionate, but she'd been obsessed with me from the start. She'd asked Patricia questions about our life together, our marriage, our home. Patricia thought she was just making conversation, trying to keep her spirits up. One night, Linda came to give me my morphine, Patricia said, her voice barely audible. But this time, the injection felt different. Everything went dark. When I woke up, I was in that room. "How long were you there before?" "Before the funeral," I asked. "She kept me sedated for weeks. I was too weak to fight. She told me you'd moved on, that you didn't want me anymore. She showed me pictures on her phone, pictures of you laughing, going to dinner, living your life. She said you were relieved I was gone." Tears streamed down my face. "I mourned you every single day. I know that now. But then, I believed her. I gave up. I stopped fighting." Linda had falsified Patricia's death certificate. As a nurse, she had access to the necessary systems. She'd arranged for a closed casket service, claiming Patricia's body was too deteriorated for viewing. The funeral home never questioned it, and what I'd scattered in High Park were just ashes, probably from a crematorium's unclaimed remains. She'd kept Patricia drugged for the first year, keeping her compliant and weak. She'd built the false wall in my basement while I was at work, telling me she was just helping organize the storage area. I'd been so deep in grief, I hadn't questioned it. For 6 years, Linda had fed Patricia just enough to keep her alive. She'd installed a small ventilation system, soundproofing. The room had a chemical toilet that Linda would empty when I was asleep or away. Patricia lived in near total darkness, with only a small lamp that Linda allowed her to use for a few hours each day. "Why didn't she just kill you?" Detective Morrison asked gently. Patricia's laugh was bitter. Control. She wanted me to know she'd taken my life, my husband, my daughter. Every time she brought me food, she'd tell me about her day with David, what you'd said over dinner, where you'd gone on weekends, how you'd proposed. She wanted me to suffer, but Linda had made a mistake. Last year, she'd started letting Patricia stay conscious more often. The drugs were expensive, and Linda needed to be careful not to raise suspicions with her hospital's medication inventory. Patricia had started exercising quietly in her prison, rebuilding her strength. She'd found a loose pipe and would tap messages, hoping someone would hear. Sophie had heard. And 3 months ago, Patricia had discovered something in the room that Linda had accidentally left behind. A cookbook. Patricia's cookbook, the one she'd been working on before her diagnosis, full of family recipes and stories. I'd been writing it for Sophie, Patricia said. All our family recipes, stories from my childhood, from our life together. I wanted her to have it. Linda had stolen the manuscript from Patricia's things and was planning to publish it under her own name. She'd shown Patricia the proof, bragging about how the publisher loved it, how she'd make money from Patricia's work. That's when Patricia knew she had to try harder to escape. She'd started making more noise, especially when she heard Sophie's voice in the house. She'd hoped, prayed, that her daughter would investigate. The police found Linda at the hospital. She was in the middle of her shift when they arrested her. According to witnesses, she didn't resist. She just smiled and asked if she could finish her patient rounds first. In custody, Linda confessed to everything. She showed no remorse. David was supposed to be mine, she told detectives. Patricia was dying anyway. I just accelerated the process. And then when I had him, when we were happy, I couldn't let her ruin it. If she came back, he'd choose her. He'd always choose her. The forensic psychologist diagnosed her with erotomania and narcissistic personality disorder. She'd convinced herself that I was in love with her, that Patricia was the obstacle to our happiness. In her twisted logic, keeping Patricia alive but hidden was mercy. She could have killed her, she argued, but she'd let her live. The trial was a media sensation. Woman fakes wife's death, keeps her prisoner for years, dominated headlines across Canada. Linda was convicted of kidnapping, forcible confinement, fraud, falsifying government documents, and attempted murder. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison with no possibility of parole for 15 years. Patricia's recovery was slow. 6 years of captivity had taken a severe toll on her body. She'd lost muscle mass. Her bones had weakened. Her vision had deteriorated from living in dim light. But she was alive, and she was home. Sophie took a leave from university to help care for her mother. The guilt she carried for not investigating the sound sooner was crushing. We went to family therapy together, all 3 of us. You were just a kid, Patricia told Sophie during one session. You heard something strange, and an adult you trusted told you it was nothing. That's not your fault. But I should have known. I should have trusted my instincts. And now you've learned that lesson. Trust your instincts, always. If something feels wrong, investigate. Don't let anyone make you doubt what you know to be true. As for me, I struggled with overwhelming guilt. How had I not known? How had I lived in that house for 6 years, fallen in love with another woman, while my wife was imprisoned below my feet? My therapist helped me understand that I'd been a victim too. Linda had manipulated all of us. She was a skilled liar, a trained nurse who knew exactly how to present herself as trustworthy. I'd been grieving, vulnerable, and she'd exploited that. Patricia and I had to rebuild our relationship from scratch. We weren't the same people we'd been 6 years ago. She'd survived an unimaginable trauma. I'd mourned her, moved on, nearly married her captor. We couldn't just pick up where we'd left off. I don't expect us to go back to how things were, Patricia said one evening as we sat in our living room 6 months after her rescue. We're different people now, but maybe we can figure out who these new people are together. We started dating again, if you can call it that. Coffee every morning, walks in the park, therapy sessions. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt trust. Patricia published her cookbook the following year. Recipes from Captivity, Finding Light in the Darkest Places became a bestseller. She donated all proceeds to organizations supporting domestic violence, survivors, and prisoners of human trafficking. Sophie graduated with honors in engineering. She wrote her thesis on soundproofing, and its potential misuse in criminal confinement cases. She now works with a nonprofit that installs panic buttons and sound detection systems in homes of vulnerable individuals. Marcus, the contractor who'd saved Patricia's life, became a close family friend. I insisted on paying him a substantial reward, but he refused. "I just did what anyone would do," he said. Instead, I donated to his favorite charity in his name, and we invite him over for dinner every month. Looking back on this nightmare now, 5 years later, I've learned some crucial lessons that I want to share. First, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. Don't let anyone, no matter how trusted they seem, convince you that your concerns are invalid. Sophie heard those sounds, felt that something was off, but Linda gaslit her into doubting herself. We must teach our children, our loved ones, to trust their gut feelings. Second, grief makes us vulnerable. When we're mourning, we're desperate for relief from the pain. That's when predators strike. They offer comfort, understanding, a way forward. Be cautious with your heart when you're healing. There are genuine, kind people in the world, but there are also those who see grief as an opportunity. Third, the people we trust most can sometimes harbor the darkest secrets. Linda was a nurse, a caregiver, someone I'd met in a support group for grieving spouses. She seemed perfect because she'd designed herself to seem perfect. She'd studied me, learned what I needed, and became that person. Evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it wears a kind smile and offers you a cup of tea. Fourth, never dismiss the concerns of young people. Sophie tried to tell me something was wrong. She heard sounds, felt uncomfortable, but I was too caught up in my new relationship to listen. Children and teenagers often sense things adults miss. Take their concerns seriously. Fifth, verify everything. I never questioned the closed casket. I never asked to see documents. I trusted the system, trusted Linda, trusted that everything was as it appeared. In times of crisis or grief, we must still maintain a level of vigilance. It's not about being paranoid. It's about being prudent. Finally, healing is possible, but it takes time. Patricia will never fully recover from what happened to her. The trauma will always be part of her story, but she's found ways to channel that pain into purpose. Her cookbook, her advocacy work, her willingness to share her story, it's all helped her reclaim her narrative. Patricia and I renewed our vows last spring. It was a small ceremony in our backyard, just family and close friends. Sophie stood beside us as our witness. Marcus was there. Even Officer Kowalski attended. As I looked at Patricia, healthy and strong and alive, I thought about how close I'd come to losing her forever, how close I'd come to marrying the woman who'd imprisoned her, how easily evil had infiltrated our lives. "I promise to listen when you speak," I said during our vows, "to trust you, to protect you, and to never take a single day with you for granted." Patricia squeezed my hands. "I promise to keep fighting, to keep living, and to remind you every day that we survived. We're here. We won." The gift shop in Sunnybrook Hospital now has a policy that all nurses must work in pairs when administering medication to palliative care patients. Patricia pushed for that change. "If 2 people had been in my room that night," she said, "Linda couldn't have done what she did." Small changes. That's how we prevent these nightmares. We change policies. We listen to concerns. We trust our instincts. We verify. We remain vigilant without becoming paranoid. My name is David Chen. I'm 68 years old now. I live in Toronto with my wife Patricia of 45 years. My daughter Sophie visits every weekend with her fiancé. I have a good life, a blessed life. But I will never forget that phone call from Marcus. I will never forget the sound of my wife's voice coming from behind that wall. I will never forget that evil can hide in plain sight, wearing the face of someone we trust. And I will never stop sharing this story. Because if it helps even one person recognize the warning signs, trust their instincts, or investigate when something feels wrong, then some good will have come from our nightmare. The people we trust most can sometimes harbor the darkest secrets. Stay vigilant, trust your instincts, and never, ever assume that the impossible can't happen to you. Because 6 years ago, I would have said it was impossible for my dead wife to be alive. I would have said it was impossible for the kind nurse who helped me grieve to be a monster. I would have said it was impossible for someone to hide a prisoner in my own home without my knowledge. But all of those impossible things happened, and they could happen to anyone.